Hey everyone, my name's Kronis. Welcome to the Musicians Insider. Today I'm speaking with Ari and Joel, and we're gonna have a fun discussion about. Well, we'll just let them introduce themselves, and we'll get this rolling. This is the first time I've done a Zoom where there's more than two people in different windows for the podcast, so it's gonna be interesting when I edit how this is gonna look. 'Cause usually it's side by side, so that's cool. I'm
We
still.
didn't, yeah, we didn't, we almost never go in the same room, Joel and I.
We actually hate each other.
Yeah.
It's a little known fact. No,
I
we
love it.
can't stand each other. No, that's not true at all.
Here, don't worry. What I don't do is like read Chat GPT questions to you.
Like some of the written ones, where it's like, let's say these are ChatGPT generated questions, and then let's say we like generated our answers through ChatGPT, and then you have just robots
ChatGPT
talking to
itself.
each other. Yeah.
I love it.
Like, is that the world we're in right now?
That's so funny. Okay, so let me
Kind of.
start. Okay, so guys, tell me where you both are located and how this came about that you're working the way we are. And I'd love to just tell the world about your projects. And at the end, we'll link to everything.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm Ari, as you can probably see on the screen, and I live in Toronto, Canada, and I'm originally from Winnipeg. I like to say that always, but I've been based out of Toronto for a long time. And I'm a media composer, mostly for television and film. And Joel is a good friend and colleague of mine, and I'll let him introduce himself.
And Ari's a great guy. He's which is like related to the Winnipeg thing. Like, I mean, Canadians will know, like, people from Winnipeg, they're good looking, they're smart, they're talented at music. I'm also originally from Winnipeg.
There you
And
go.
that's something that sort of sets the tone for the conversation in many ways. Like these different ways that Ari and I sort of share a lot of. I don't know. We're cut from the same cloth, I like to say. But yeah, my name's Joel. My background is as a guitarist and music producer, and I do composition primarily for TV. What else can I tell you about myself? We both worked on a show called Sullivan's Crossing and many other things together.
October 2nd. So tell me about what happened on October 2nd. It was released, I believe. It came out.
Oh. Yes, that's the season 2 of the show just came out in the States, I guess, is what sort of prompted this whole, bit of a media push to talk about the show because it airs up here in Canada and it airs on the CW in the US. And so I think season 2 just hit the airwaves down there.
I posted a podcast this morning with an artist named Samantha Ava who came and recorded with me in the studio. So we actually shot a side by side in real life podcast for the first time in a while.
Nice.
And so we'll get this. Do you have any upcoming times and dates that things are happening and launching in Canada or anywhere else that you want to mention?
Season 2 of Sullivan's Crossing is re-airing in Canada, and it's just airing for the first time. It's currently just started airing in the States.
Do they release the whole thing and you can binge it, or is it weekly? How does that work now?
It's broadcast.
Very cool.
Good old-fashioned broadcast is it's a model that still lives and exists out there amongst all the
I live with someone who said she was on the CW. They're all on the CW. They're doing some show on the CW. I lived in LA for a while, so I have to deal with that.
Mm.
I'm in Canada now, north of Toronto. Pandemic sent me back here, but I'm going to the NAMM show in January in Anaheim, in the music thing. And you said you're a guitarist. Tell me a little bit about the guitars you play. I'd love to hear a bit.
So
I'm a guitar guy.
you're in Toronto. We could have done this in person.
Well, but it would have been difficult because I've been in Vegas all week.
Okay. Yeah, I love talking about guitar and specifically the guitars that I've purchased. It's like, how much time do you have? So, I mean,
What's your main instrument? Like
yeah,
guitar?
it's like guitar wise on Sullivan's Crossing, it's almost like 2 or 3 guitars. It's acoustic guitars, and I have a wide palette of different kind of guitars and different tunings and different scale lengths and all sorts of different sonic varieties. But on Sullivan's Crossing in particular, it's a lot of simple acoustic guitar that's in kind of a variety of tunings, like sort of folk roots kind of tunings. A lot of acoustic guitar.
I actually recently recorded a song that's in a completely whack tuning. It's like CGE, GCE, on the acoustic and on a Gibson, which made it easy to tune it because I usually use the Ernie balls for everything. I play the Majesties and the JP6s, and I love it.
Nice.
Cool.
Really neat stuff. And like I like the for acoustic lately, even though I do use the Godin acoustics, I love Godin. The JP guitars have the piezo pickups or whatever you call it, and they work really, really nice through an Axe FX. I'm using Axe FX. What kind of amps are you using?
So everything's, I don't have any emulated stuff. It's all the real deal. And I have like, what's cool about the studio is it's small but mighty, and it has like really incredible analog chain for a few different instruments. So I have a beautiful analog chain for acoustic guitar in my booth here. And so I have what am I using? A Royer 122 and a Royer 122V, which is the tube ribbon mic, and a DPA, beautiful DPA condenser. And it all goes into a Grace, this is getting in the nitty gritty here, goes to a Grace preamp and then a BAE preamp. Just really, really beautiful sounds. The conversion is by Burl Audio and then into an RME. So it's like, this is my happy place. I've almost like stopped playing live because it's just, I have this perfect little sonic environment.
And that's where
just
we clash in a little bit of it. Like I love what you're doing. I would never, take away the sonicness of having real audio tubes and all that stuff. However, with something like an Axe FX and I did most of my last record with what's the other one called? The green one that's kind of round. Kemper, with a Kemper.
Kemper, yeah.
Like sounded fantastic. So it's like on the road, using a Kemper and Axe FX sounds pretty darn close. Like I'm not the one's gonna really notice. So like you can portabilize it. That's the thing. I don't have a tour bus I can bring all this stuff on. I love the setups. That's great. So then now Ari, you're playing piano at home. Now you're not wearing in-ears, but you're looking like you're still pretty darn connected. Do you guys actually play together online?
We don't. We pass things back and forth a lot.
Like when you're writing, you have the keyboard up, you show them, or you just send videos and audio.
No, no, no. Like I'll record maybe a sketch of a cue with piano parts and some pads and strings and that kind of thing, and I might mock up a guitar part. Either like I can play a little bit, I can play pretty simple guitar, but so I might mock up a part, and sometimes if it's more tricky, I'll mock it up on the keyboard, and then I'll send Joel these stems so that he can replace the parts,
And my apologies, I'm in the midst of relocating some stuff, but usually I have this guy set up and I have like everything plugged in with in-ears and I can play along with you and talk to you. That reminds me though of what I've been doing a lot of, which is going live on TikTok with other people, playing and jamming with friends that we meet. And I mean, that's a whole other thing that I just kind of discovered. And you seem to have the connectivity now. Like once you figure out how to, record and talk through Zoom and be able to record and do things, it's fantastic what you can do. Like I finished an album that I was doing in a studio in Los Angeles over Zoom. We had to mix the last 3 tracks and we didn't compromise anything. I'm basically sitting in the studio room on Zoom now next to the producer and everything's up on the screen.
But can you, I mean, forgive my ignorance about this, but can you interact in a live setting in real time, or is it just you're auditioning things over Zoom?
I wouldn't bother doing things in real time. I would just
Right.
record it and send it. But I mean, the fact that you can sit there like you're in the studio and listening to the things, I do a hell of a lot of referencing, and that's why the one thing that Spotify, even though they like take all our money and nobody gets paid, it is nice that you have instead of bringing a bag of CDs in the studio when you're making a production, like you don't have to do that anymore. You just bring your Spotify account. You can say, oh, this track is the reference for this part. This track's it's really great for that.
Right,
How are
right.
you guys doing things in the studio? Tell me a little bit about your process and just also something for my audience, just some advice maybe on how you got where you are a little bit.
Sure, sure.
Or the Musicians Insider, I try to give some help to people that are trying to do what you're doing.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm a little bit older than Joel. I've been doing this a bit longer in terms of the actual screen composing, and I kind of got my start cutting my teeth doing commercial work. Like I did a lot of advertising, jingles, and just background tracks for ads. I was an in-house composer at what, they would have called in the old days a jingle house. It's a big shop up here called Pirate Sound. And I've had an association with them forever. But that's kind of how I really got, deep into working fast, learning about the gear, figuring out how to get to the essence of all kinds of different styles, because that's just the nature of commercial work. It's sort of imitating what's out there in the art world and what's popular.
Were there any jingles that stick out growing up that kind of made you want to do that?
No, I mean, I could probably sing you tons of jingles that I remember from being a kid, but it's not what I ever imagined doing, to be honest. Like when I got out of school, music school, I wanted to be a songwriter. That's really what I wanted to do, and I spent a lot of time making demos, sending them out to music publishers. Went to Nashville, did some writing trips, things like that. But it's just I never was able to get enough traction to start to make a living out of it. So I was kind of like, working as a piano player and as a teacher and supporting my songwriting habit.
Right, that must be so difficult because it doesn't matter how good you are. It just matters if you're the oil and water light in the wrong right way at the right time with the right artist.
It's a lot of networking for sure, which never came naturally to me, to be honest.
It's good
I've
that you're
learned,
on here. This is how you network. You meet people, you do podcasts, you get out there, and if I bump into you in LA at NAM now, it's like, oh, that's that guy. It's just easier to
yeah.
help people once you've met them
It's
before.
easier to, yeah, for sure, for sure. But it wasn't my strengths when I first got started. But I got a lucky break getting a job at this jingle house, and that just started to lead to working on TV shows. It started with kids shows and animation and that kind of thing, and then led into working on dramas and films. And it was some point during that time that Joel and I ended up meeting and started to collaborate on things.
And what's the first project you guys did that was relatively commercial or whatever that we would might recognize?
Well, this is the first. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. We also co-wrote together on a show called Ride, which was a show that was on the Hallmark Channel and also aired up here in Canada. It was a really great show. It unfortunately only got one season out of it, but got lots of accolades. And in fact, Joel and I went down to LA to accept an ASCAP award for the show, and also just received a SOCAN award up here for the score for the show. So it's like the show did well. I'm not exactly.
And you also got a Canadian Screen Award for the first season of the Sullivan's Crossing. Is that true?
That's true. Now, Joel wasn't involved with that. He came on in the second season. I worked on the first season with a longtime collaborator, a guy named Amin Batia, who was kind of a mentor of mine. And so we've worked on a lot of shows together. And he's, in the same way that I'm a little bit older than Joel, Amin's a little bit older than me. So like he kind of,
A little mentorship thing going on
yeah, yeah. Not that I'm Joel's mentor, but I'd like to think that
in
he's
a
learned.
bro way.
Let me pop in for a second because I think it's worth anybody who's watching this on YouTube or whatever. I think it's just look over to Ari's shoulder and you'll see like a shelf that is in very close range of collapsing because and there are a lot of awards there, and that is evident. It's just like nobody does this for awards, right? Ari happens to have a lot of them, and it really signifies just a lifetime of work of excellence. And what I am super super lucky to be collaborating with someone like Ari and also Amin, who we've also had a great chance to work together, who's equally awarded. So I think it's like Ari is like an soft-spoken, understated guy, but don't forget the like ammunition he has right over his shoulder
Okay, so
as he talks.
I think just for fun here, I want to bring something up. So like, assuming that everyone is just absolutely phenomenal at rating the parts, what's the workflow like for creating something remotely?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. Like my background as a producer, I think has helped with that. Also, composers tend to be very workflow oriented. Like a lot of us are quite nerdy that way. And there's, as Ari has mentioned, there's often so little time. So moves have to be efficiently made. And I think composers by nature media composers tend to be quite organized and have a good workflow. So far in my experience, they care about that. So in terms of specifics, we use file sharing services like Dropbox. We have project management tools such as QDB, and we also have used a project management tool called Nifty. We have music editors that
Is your preferred
help.
DAWs? Do you both use Logic? Do you both use Ableton? Do you both use Pro Tools? Or do you use different ones?
We send WAV files. Ari uses Logic primarily, and I use Reaper primarily. And yeah, and I won't go into the nitty gritty details, but I have a ton of workflow stuff and automation stuff that, it's like, it helps to offload the mundane work so I can stay as much as possible in the creative flow. And
I don't mind having AI do my fades.
Sure, right.
Why
I haven't
not?
got
Why
that
not?
far, but
Make my copy, do
yeah.
my fades, I do the art.
Yeah, yeah. And
Just
Joel's
saying,
very,
I
Joel's very,
about that for efficiency. That's it.
Joel's very efficient. I've been learning a lot from him in terms of project management and stuff too, because um, I'm organized, and I think he's right that the very nature of being a screen composer is kind of a left brain, right brain thing. Like you do have to be able to handle clients, and you have to work to deadlines, and you also have to be creative, right? But the creative side is half of it, maybe half of it. Like there's this whole other side of it that, the babysitting, the client management, the planning, let's not forget about the revisions. There's always this time where we hand in our projects, or we hand in an episode, and we're brilliant in our minds until the revisions come in, and then there's pages of notes, and it's like, oh boy, all right.
I always find it interesting when you send something in to someone and then some type of mentor gives you the feedback that you just never ever would have thought of, and you think, I'm not going to be able to do this, am I? This person's way better than you, but you can't do that. You got to learn, you got to push back and do it. But it is interesting when you meet an expert in their field, like someone who can rewrite a script, and they like just take a story you're reading and they make another thing and they add all these things. You're like, how did you do that? Oh, I'm just doing a quick rewrite. You're like, what? You just added all this stuff? Like, so it blows my mind the talent that there is in the creative space on things like, being a producer even. Like I have a great vocal producer that's helping me do extra. I don't know what parts to sing in the studio. Like I know what I'm singing and I know the vocal, like I don't know how to do the delays and all that stuff. I wouldn't know how to time them. I just don't have any space in my head for learning how to mix other people's music. I'm trying to be a musician myself. I hire people who record other people all day long for that specifically because they're good at it.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. Like if there's something you don't do all the time, don't try and do it on your project. Like get someone who's good at that, like mastering, just a tiny example.
For sure, it's a very collaborative. Any kind of art making is usually pretty collaborative like that, and screen composing in particular, because we're here to serve a purpose of helping tell the story, right? And so it doesn't matter. It could be the greatest, most brilliant little guitar lick that Joel did, or something that I did on the piano, but if it's not helping tell the story, it's not serving the right purpose, And so it's really like when you can collaborate with a showrunner, like Roma Roth is the showrunner on Sullivan's Crossing, and when you can kind of get in her head and get the feedback from her and have the pieces morph into something that you wouldn't necessarily have done on your own, it's a really wonderful thing.
And like you have to know what's going on in this show. So how do you do that if you haven't seen it and you're working on the episode? You just read the script to understand what happened to the whole character? Like how does that work?
No, we have a locked cut that we get that's from the editors that say in the case of Sullivan's that Roma has been through painstakingly with the editors and everybody's really combed through it, and that's the locked cut. So we're composing to picture.
Oh, I feel that, but you still have to like get into it, and there's no music to make you have the emotion while you're watching it. So you're sitting there going, this is my turn to shine, right? But as like someone who's not a composer, I'm a musician. I write albums, but I don't have the workflow you have because I feel that would destroy my art and turn it into radio music or into elevator music. Like I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I feel like it would give me. I don't want to be formulaic. I like being. My shit's weird. You should check it out sometime. But I only want feedback that like if you think it sucks, I want to know that, and I want to know why. And then the parts that suck are generally the parts that are the most interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think. I think that with the screen music, like first of all, when we get a locked cut, there's usually almost always what's called temp music on there, right? So there's someone, the editor or the music editor has gone through it and placed cues from our archives.
Oh, so you're just replacing the stock stuff.
Well, but it's not stock stuff. It's usually stuff that we've already written for previous episodes and
Oh, so they're
whatnot,
using
right?
stuff you already
So
cut.
just to help, and they do that because it helps to sell the cut, right? Like the cut has to go through many stages of first the producer's cut, and then the network cut, and then the locked cut. So in order to help sell the story and the performances, they do temp it with music. But then after that, we get it, and we
You
usually
you beautify the audio.
we try, yeah, we try. And sometimes the temp's great and sometimes it's not, right? So, I mean, we have a long discussion with Roma on Sullivan's each time we start a new episode and say, what are you thinking here? That spotting, that's called a spotting session. And when we do that, we make a very detailed list of like, what's the key emotion here? What are we going for?
So who's talking more at that point between the two of you?
It's even. Yeah, I like it's that's I would it's an open conversation. I would say. I mean, yeah, like both might have questions. Sometimes the temp is also like misplaced or it's too much music, and that can be a tricky thing. Is like it's a little bit harder to what can you remove from the garden to make it more beautiful rather than put it in, because it's easy to have, like as you say, like elevator music going on in the background, but then it becomes ineffective because your brain is just used to this sort of
That's
thing that's
exactly what I meant.
pushing,
You nailed it. That's what I meant.
yeah,
Hmm.
pushing things along. Whereas if you have something simple, but it comes in the perfect time, that's when goosebumps happen. That's when single tears happen. That's when hearts start beating a little faster. All these emotions that we're trying to evoke in partnership with
It,
Roma, of course.
it must feel great when you two are doing something together and you nail it and you're like, yeah.
It's very rewarding. I find it like I feel like music just on its own is a hard enough unmasterable language, and then you put it together with picture and all the variations of that and the performances, the dialogue, the cuts from the scenes. There's thousands of decisions, right? And there's lots of ways to do it correctly and have similar effects. But trying to find that one simple solution that really just makes you feel is very rewarding when it happens.
I have an interesting one. This is just out there. You know how like when you're younger, you might be into some movie that you really like, and there's music in it, and you don't really think about it. And then when you're older now, like stuff that you listen to when you're 14, 15 really resonates with you and you love it. I'm rediscovering music from skateboarding videos. I never tried to play them because I didn't know what the hell they were because I was into like really heavy metal and other stuff. I'm a guitar guy, right? But to go back and now learn them, but be very like I can learn it off YouTube in like the same time it takes to listen to it because my technical stuff is for like heavy music. So like going back and listening to skate rock, it's like, oh my God, I can play it exactly right now. It's very rewarding. So there's stuff that you now that you're good at stuff, right? We're all good at being in the studio. Go back and find stuff that inspired you as a kid that maybe you didn't ever try to play like even Beatles songs or things like that. Like it's so much fun to do that. It's a good rewarding thing. So I recommend.
Yeah, for sure. You have a better understanding of it with the experience that you've had, right?
Or even just trying to learn weird Metallica solos that you couldn't do at 17, and now you're like, oh.
I
And
don't
then,
know, I
like,
don't know, Joe. I mean, I don't know, Joel, if you can speak to that, but like, just quickly, like a similar things happened to me lately. Is I went to go see one of my favorite bands of all time who was playing in Toronto. It was a band called Squeeze, which were like super popular to me and my peers in the 80s. Like they were part of that sort of
like lowest of the low or something.
but they were new wave from from the UK, right?
That's
And I probably logged more hours listening to them than any other band, and I was so excited to see them, and when I dove back into listening to all their music, I was like, oh my God, look at what they did there, and listen how that's not that the inversion of that chord, and the bass is doing something totally weird, but I would never have known that stuff back then. I was in grade 10 or 11 or whatever, right? So it's interesting.
What's the venue that you were at in Toronto? I'm just wondering.
They were playing at Massey. No, yeah, it was Massey Hall. Sorry, it was Massey Hall. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Very
Are you
cool.
in Toronto?
I'm north of Barrie, up on Georgian Bay.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
used to live in Los Angeles, and then the pandemic hit, so I came home to be near family, and apparently I can work from anywhere. So,
But so you are Canadian originally.
but 13 years in Los Angeles, I'm kind of an asshole now. Don't worry, I'm on the right side of things. So let's think about, do you have any upcoming projects that are like you're excited for, anything coming or that you're trying to get, like what's coming up for you guys?
Well, Sullivan's Crossing season 3, we're just about to start on that. So that's like the primary thing that's kind of on our minds. Um, I am doing a lot of production with different artists. Desiree Dorian just released a record that I produced. And then there's another show called Ripple, which is produced by Lionsgate, that I'll be working on around the same time as Sullivan's Crossing. But don't tell Roma that I'm moonlighting on another show.
So you're producing an artist named Desiree. That's great. What kind of music is she?
That's like, so the stuff that I do, and all, like pretty much all the stuff that I tend to be hired for is, like, I'm a guitarist, so it tends to be guitar driven kind of stuff. And a lot of the music that I get hired for, whether it's production or screen composing, is kind of in the constellation of genres that includes like blues, Americana, folk, roots, and that can stretch from super intimate, emotional, quiet stuff, reflective stuff, all the way to, like balls to the wall, rockin' stuff. But
Like
guitar tends to be, even if it's very, I tend to be attracted to pretty like atmospheric, kind of ethereal things. I like a lot of nuance in the music that I'm either producing or composing. And it tends to be like, I find artists as well as, like, I would say producers, showrunners, etc. They're coming to me because they want to create something quite authentic, and that seems to be something that I'm really drawn to, and I think that's a through line for Ari and I as well, as we have that in common.
Do you get into the electronic EDM side of things a little bit, or the tools from that for your stuff, especially when doing like soundtracks? I know you can do like weird, like the soundtrack to the Facebook movie, like something that Trent Reznor did, like just weird kind of sounds that are coming from the EDM world but are still in the composer realm.
For me, like, I have a tons of respect for people who do that, and I do have, like, all the VSTs you can imagine, and I guess I have some of the tools to do that, but it's not something I'm hired to do or something I specifically dip into. But yeah, there's certainly like a lot of digital tools that I
I'd love to see
use.
someone like you playing with Serum and be like, this guy knows what he's doing. So like, as opposed to watching a kid who's playing with Serum that doesn't understand scales. Like if you know someone who's a theorist, when they use the EDM tools quietly and in the background to
You
just
know,
add to a scene or
this
something.
this is, I just got this. This is a Moog Mother 32, and
Welcome to
this
the
is
fold.
like learning a totally, like, there's not even a piano keyboard on here, like. So it's like, it's really like, and I have friends who are really experts in this stuff, and I'm looking at it almost like a guitar pedal, like
I
thinking
think
of it.
we can totally think on that vibe. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love this.
So I have a ton of guitar pedals, and I use those as outboard effects as well as like going into my DAW. I love that kind of stuff. I have toys like the, Omnichord, so fun. Like,
Can I get a toy? I want to show you one.
Nice. I have an Omnichord too. I didn't know you had one.
yeah, but I was gonna say, like, there's not always time for that kind of experimentation too. Yeah, and like a push, I totally get that. So it's
And
like,
so I love the fact that you can take a push controller and you can map the scale so it's like do re mi fa sol la ti do, or do re mi fa sol la, like you can go 1 2 3 1 2 3 up that way too instead of just across that way.
Right.
But you can also make it a different scale. Now it's a minor scale by just changing the scale. It's amazing we can do this.
Wow.
And I just bought this. Oh wait, I didn't buy this one. My older one. I bought a new board in Vegas. I was really happy with it.
I was gonna say though, like these tools, like the outboard stuff, it's really fun to have, but there's just not always time for the turnarounds to explore that stuff. And I know what I've started dipping into, and what a lot of composers do just to have a faster workflow, is they sample these instruments. So they create some samples of whether it be a Moog sound that they've created, or an omnichord, or some outboard stuff, and they have it kind of ready to go. They're custom samples within Contact. I haven't gone super, super deep because, again, my orientation is more guitar. But I've started some of that, and I can see the utility of it in terms of just working fast as well. And Ari, like, you have like all your templates. Ari has like years and years of templates and different sounds. So it's like, it's kind of like, I feel like you dip into, like, you can dip right into kind of the creative intention of what a cue is, and like you're not searching for sounds typically like for too long.
No, that's true. I find, like, whenever I finish a project, I try to take a few of the sequences from there and turn them into a template, and just so I know, okay, here's a collection of sounds that are just sitting there, and it's all nice and organized, and I know that this is going to be great for this kind of scene. And yeah, I might go in and futz with things and pick some new sounds, or add to it or take away, but it's a great starting place. And that's also, again, from years of commercial work where I just was like, okay, well, here's a 50s diner template, and here's an opera aria template, and here's a jazz quintet template, and like those kinds of things. I like to dip into those things. And I do find that, like, what you were just saying, Joel, about there's not often the time to be exploring the sounds. That is something that, when I'm between projects, that's what I often spend a lot of time doing, is just like going through my libraries and finding things that I haven't used before, and going, oh, this is cool. I'll just do a little quick sketch of this sound so I can, come back to it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a guy I know locally is a composer, and he's getting tons of work all around the world, and I was impressed. I was like thinking, oh, you're just doing stuff at home, and then 20 years later, he's killing it. And it's just impressive to me how people can sit at home and have a career as a composer. I don't have the patience to be a composer. I don't think. I want to do licensing of my music, but I don't really want to write for film and television at this time. Maybe down the road, or in a collaboration with someone like him or like yourselves. Very cool stuff, though. I mean, it's great to see people successfully doing this out there. And I guess I'm gonna wrap it up, but I want to say, like, I really wish you guys, the best in the next season 3 of Sullivan's Crossing, and I'd love to have you back if you have more stuff to talk about or something new coming up.
Yeah.
Anything you want to promote or talk about before we end it for the day?
Well, I just wanted to mention, because it's sort of a point where another project that Joel and I worked on together is an artist named Lucy Ellis that I produced her record like this last year, and Joel was integral to the whole process. He did all the guitar work and tons of ethereal parts, but also acoustic guitar and electric guitars. And she put out an EP, which I think, she's just a wonderful young artist in her early 20s. That's just
Canadian?
Canadian, yeah. She's from here in Toronto.
There's a community in Toronto she should know about called DIT, Do It Together. Daryl Hers is running it. They have Ted Cohen on a talk once a week coming in from LA to discuss the new industry. So I would recommend it for you too, or anyone else watching.
Cool.
I'm a member. I'm not, like, I don't work for them or anything, but I found them and they've been on my podcast, and that's how I know who they are. If I hadn't had this podcast, I wouldn't have heard about them, and that's how I know, and it's how you network, and it's working for me. So, Ari and Joel, great to meet you guys. Anything you want to add, Joel?
Sure. I mean, like, the only other thing I would say is, like, if people have checked out Sullivan's Crossing and have a sense for the music, that's great. I mean, people can check out my website, joelschwartz.ca, or my scoring site, which is filmguitars.com.
Oh, that sounds cool.
The Desiree Dorian project is one worth checking out, because I think, like, for fans of kind of the Americana stuff, it's almost like very ethereal but super powerful. Her lyrics have a very strong message, and there's a similarity to some of the TV stuff I've done in that, I was spearheading a team of people who are like, so I was producing it, playing guitars, but there's an incredible rhythm section, mixing engineer. Like, it's a really beautiful sounding, killer sounding record. So people could check that out. But also, like, Lucy, as Ari said, is a great one that we both had a lot of fun working on too. It sounds killer.
Well, that's great. I wish you guys like all the best in what's going on with your future career. It sounds like you're on top of things right now, and maybe we'll see you at some festival. I need to get out and go to more things and do more in-person networking, but maybe I was at CMW this year and it was great. I haven't been there since God knows how long, like 10, 15 years it seems. But it was like the last one at Harbor Castle they haven't had in a while. Do you ever go to those?
CMW?
Either of those? Yeah, either of you?
It's been a while. I did kind of like at earlier points in my career, but I haven't gone in a little bit. Yeah, but I know those conferences are great.
They sold it this year. Yeah, I've been to South by Southwest too, and I just got back from something called PubCon, which is an SEO conference, and that's my sort of day gig is SEO. But like nobody's Googling good music and then finding my band, so it's not a
Yeah, I went to Folk Music Ontario. I did a conference in BC. There's Folk Alliance is coming up. There's these conferences in general are wonderful ways to meet and collaborate with people and talk to new people. Yeah.
Folk Music Alliance. Okay, so I grew up going to Mariposa with my parents,
Oh, nice.
and like Gordon Lightfoot played at their wedding. Like they had this
Wow.
like dad messed with Joni Mitchell's teeth. He was a dentist. He helped her fix her teeth when she was broke in Yorkville, and they were on that Yorkville scene, the Hughes Room, all those things. It was such a great story, like hearing about all that stuff. So
Very cool. I was just
I
at
don't know.
Hughes Room last night. It's changed. It's on the East End. It used to be on the West End now. But yeah, well, Canada, Toronto in particular, has a really rich tradition and history with folk and roots music, certainly.
So I just wanted to share that with you. So I'm not just a metalhead that doesn't get it. Although I'm a huge Pantera fan. Anyway, I saw the real Pantera. Okay, so thank you guys so much for being on the Musicians Insider. I'm Kronis. I'm your host, and we will catch you all really soon.